Hello, my name is Chris Champion. I'm a student with Nicholls University Online in the Petroleum Engineering Technology and Safety Management program. And this is my reflection video for English 102 being taught by Mrs. A.J. in the spring of 2021. So the purpose of this video is to reflect upon the things I've learned while completing the two major assignments of this class, and that was going to be the annotated bibliography and the research paper, and also describe what I learned as a whole throughout the entire class. So starting at the top with the annotated bibliography, I've never done an annotated bibliography before, though I'd certainly used them back in the day when I was a college student for the first time back in the late 90s. I found the annotated bibliography was a great tool, not only to use, but to help find good sources for a subject, and it was a great way to take notes on a subject, on your sources. And again, just putting everything into a paragraph form and be able to take that with you and then refer back to it was a great way so that you didn't have to shuffle around and look at the sources every single time and remember, hey, that's what that was about. I found the best way to go about things was to take one or two sources every single day and take some notes on them and write them down, and then you kind of building your annotated bibliography, one or two, three sources every single day, so you're not trying to read too much all at the same time. The next one up is going to be the research paper, and that was the big project. Um, I haven't done an MLA paper since high school in 1992. That was a long time ago. Most of my recent papers being done through Nicholls Online were all being done in the APA style. Okay, and they were much shorter projects. They were not as long or as detailed with as many sources as this one. Just to give you an idea how long ago 1992 was, in 1992 it was closer to 1964, which was the year that the Beatles played on the Ed Sullivan Show, than it was to 2021. So that's a long time ago. But again, this was a much bigger project than a lot of the APA projects I've been working on in the petroleum engineering safety management program that I'm in right now. And it was a different format. I had to learn how to use MLA format. It was different than APA. And number one thing that I found that was helpful for this was looking at the student example papers. They were very important. They really showed exactly how the papers were laid out, how the format worked, and that was a big help. So I didn't have to try to guess or look through the websites all the time and look at other student examples that maybe weren't as good. I think the most important thing that I took from the research paper, and probably from the entire course as a whole, was how important it was to find good sources and what to do with them. And when I first started looking for sources, I simply went onto the Nicholls Library website and went to their search engine for periodicals, peer-reviewed stuff, and put in some keywords and got a whole bunch of stuff, started going through them, and picked out which ones that were actually on the subject that I wanted to write about. My first subject, the first topic that I wanted to write on, I soon found there weren't enough good sources on that topic, so I had to switch to a different topic. And I think that goes to how important it is to start looking for your sources for your paper as soon as possible when you're taking the class. As soon as you know that you're working on this paper, it's a big project, start looking for your sources immediately. I did start early enough, so changing in the middle of it wasn't that big of a problem, but it meant that I had to find these sources for the next topic very quickly. I read through it. I found that they were on the subject that I was writing on, so I took them. That was it. I said, hey, look, I found one. When I got those certain number of sources that I needed that were out about what I wanted to write on, I started taking notes on them and forming the annotated bibliography. And I found that many of my sources were not as good as I would have liked. Okay, despite they were on the topic, they really didn't have much to say, and they did not really support what I would have liked my thesis to be. So I had to alter my thesis to match what the research showed. Okay, that in itself was a learning moment. Okay, and I think that's part of what research is supposed to be about, anyways. You're supposed to find out what's actually out there rather than what you think. But the key learning that I took was this: to use the works cited pages on the sources that I found were really good and supported what I wanted to say. Some of my sources were simply reviews of other papers and other sources and other studies. And if I had liked them, I could have just gone back to the original source that they cited and used that. Okay, but I would have probably lost time. By the time I was writing my annotated bibliography, it was kind of a bit late in the game. I think I probably still could have done it, but I didn't think about it at the time. My best sources that I found had dozens of great citations and sources of their own. The source I had from the CDC had, wow, lots that I could have just, and it was one of the first things that I'd found. If I had just gone through that source and, hey, look, these are great, and I just picked those up as my sources as well, wow, I could have been done in half a day. And it would have made a better paper. So my number one learning from the research paper is just to use good sources and how to find those. Okay, you find one good source and look to see where they got their information from and kind of follow the trail. I also had a bunch of learning involved with using the MLA format and technical writing. Again, I had never used MLA format, so I had to learn how that all was structured and especially how to do in-text citations. That wasn't something that was as technical or as difficult as it had been earlier, and it was a bunch of stuff. And I used not only some of the student sources, but I used the Norton Handbook for Writers was very important to have and look through. And the Purdue OWL website was also a great source. And I think learning about the ICE method really worked well, and how to structure my paragraphs and how to cite within the paragraphs. And it was one of the best handouts from the entire class. As a whole, I think that the class made me a better researcher and a better writer. And for many of the reasons that I gave earlier, from the things that I learned from it, I think that I'm stronger on researching skills now and stronger on technical writing because of going through all the things that I went through. I think I still need to work on taking notes from my sources. I actually use the same method to take notes that they taught me in high school back in 1992, which was to put all the ideas on index cards and then lay them out and shuffle them around and form them how you want to write your paper. That's kind of a Stone Age method now. I think that there should be ways to use PowerPoint or some other program on the computer to take notes and then shuffle them around that way instead of writing everything on index cards. It took a long time. It slowed down the process when it came to writing my research paper. So that's it. I had a really great time in this class. I want to thank all the fellow students. I want to thank Miss AJ for all the great feedback. This is one of the classes that I got some of the most feedback in ever. And it was one of those classes where there was a bunch of learning, but there was never a whole bunch of stress. So I'm thankful for that. And I think that will conclude my video. Again, thanks.